Hi, I'm JoyGenea with Solutions by JoyGenea, and welcome to If These Heels Could Talk.
And I'm Michelle with Bad Cat Digital. We've got a great guest today. JoyGenea is going to introduce.
Yes, we can't wait. So, welcome to our fabulous podcast. Today, we have the special guest of Sandy Voigt. Sandy works with the Women's Business Alliance in the central Minnesota area. It's part of the Entrepreneurial Fund. She is the amazing director of the central Minnesota area. And Sandy, just a little bit more about Sandy before we go too far, so you can just find a million reasons to adore her like we do, is she has decades of economic development experience in central Minnesota through various organizations, providing business planning and mentoring. I can actually vouch for all of that. I've watched her do it and do an amazing job. Gap lending resources, so she also helps businesses stay up, get ahead, move forward, figure things out, and has access to some of the funding to make that happen, and working with expert networks to offer solutions. Again, I've watched that also. So, fabulous introduction. Welcome, Sandy. Yay! So my first big question to you, Sandy, is what is your favorite brand or type of shoe? Very important question.
Oh, well, of all things, you would ask me about a shoe question because I could probably go through and list about a dozen, of which I have at least a dozen of each of those, majority of those black shoes. And my significant other says, how many black pairs of shoes do you possibly need? But
lots.
Well, my most comfortable ones are Think sandals. And those are the ones that have almost like a cork bottom, but they start out and then they form to your feet. The only problem is don't get them wet because then all the little spots where your toes fit turn black and they're really ugly.
That's awesome. I like that. And it's a summer shoe.
It is. And I love summer and I don't wear socks.
That's awesome. That's fantastic. Well, before we start though, usually we just do the shoe question and then we run into the other questions. But before we start though, you have this thing behind your head I wanted to ask you about because I noticed that it's like hand painted. So it's obvious that you somehow are involved in the creation of it. And it says, name it, claim it, tame it. What does that mean?
Well, that's kind of one of the slogans or sayings that I guess I try to live with. And as I'm trying to provide some counseling and guidance for the different women in businesses that we work with. First of all, this is a commissioned piece. It is a mosaic that was done by Laura Liz Mosaic in St. Cloud. And I commissioned her to make this. This is kind of the basis in my mind of how do we come to solutions. First, we have to identify what the problem is, the name it portion of this. Mm-hmm. Then the claim it is really to identify, is it you? Is it something else? What is it that you want? Trying to put some parameters around what this issue, what this concern, what your project is. And then the claim it. And what do you need to do in order to make it move forward? Mm-hmm. And that's sort of an evolutionary process all the way through from starting, identifying your ideas, your thoughts, your issues, your concerns. And so that's kind of my reminder every day of, okay, first I have to figure out what this is. And then figure out what the solution is. So
yeah, I love that. I love that so much. That's so cool.
I like that it has ownership in it.
I'm totally stealing it. So ownership or not, I'm totally stealing
it. I mean, I like that it causes people to have ownership in the
absolutely
in the solution. Like name it, claim it, tame it. Like, okay, what are you going to do to help?
What are you going to do? Not how are you going to complain, but what are you going to do?
Yeah, we know how well that works.
To me, the claim it part is that no matter whether it's your idea, whether it's your problem, whether it's something else, you do play a role in that. Mm-hmm. There is a section, there is a portion that is for you, whether no matter how you're approaching a problem or an issue, you got to figure out what your function is.
What your part of it is. That's great. That's
That is
awesome.
good.
Well, thanks for taking that little detour. Very appreciated. What's our first question, JoyGenea?
Our first question today is, oh, that sounds so Jeopardy. Okay.
Yes, Sandy, be sure to answer. We're going to provide answers, and you be sure to answer in the form of a question.
Yes. Funny. So Sandy, what are majority of the services offered at the Women's Business Alliance? What services do you guys provide? How do you help out?
Well, I would say the bulk of what we do, the majority of our time is really spent with one-on-one counseling. Again, probably going back to this a phrase is really working with the individual entrepreneurs, women business owners, but that's not exclusive. Our services are open to anyone. We just tend to focus more on women, whether they're trying to start their business, grow it, get out of a situation that they're, may have encountered. But it's really trying to work through and talk with them about what are their issues, what do they need to do, how do they want to get there. And so that one-on-one counseling is the majority of the work that we do. But then we also have a lot of training and education programs. We offer something called our Ignite webinar. This is our confidence building series that we have launched. We actually have 2 sessions that are left, but if you sign up for the webinars, you have access to all of the recorded sessions that occurred previously.
And you just had one of those, I'll let you finish, but you just had one of those, I believe, on HR types of things. And it was really, really good. Like the questions that came in were so good. And then what she shared, it was so relevant and just so point on for the difference between contractors and employees and all the things you have to have prepared. And so sorry, I'll let you continue, but that was a really, if somebody were to sign up, they'd get access to that, and it was well worth. Everybody that was in attendance, that's also in our SOAR group, was just like, that was so worth my time. And to hear that from other business owners, it was good.
Yeah, that's excellent. And then, as I say in our webinar, also the last one we just did on Wednesday was building business confidence through numbers. And of course, financials tend to be one of the areas that people get they're the most intimidated by with numbers and trying to understand what in the world is a P&L, a profit and loss sheet. What is a balance sheet? What is a cash flow projections? What is break even? And so 2 of our outstanding Entrepreneur Fund staff actually did a whole session on this, very understandable, very logical, with some examples, so that you don't. And one of the things that we always try and do is make sure that you have a safe space to ask questions and try and dig into this more than, say, like when you're sitting in front of the banker and he asks you about something and you kind of get that blank look on your face. We don't want that to happen. We want you to be able to know exactly what it is that you're looking at. So that was our previous webinar. Our upcoming one that we have is on Wednesday, August 17th, that you can still register for. Asking for a loan. You are not alone. And one of the director of our business finance program at the Entrepreneur Fund is going to be our speaker. And he is such a knowledgeable person to explain all of the nuances if you're trying to find financing and what do you need and what should you look at. So in addition to our counseling, we try and provide education series. And then we also have our group cohorts that we do what we call our success circles. And that's where you can have a small group of women entrepreneurs that can get together on a monthly basis. You have an opportunity to identify where do you want to be going and how are you going to get there. And then you have a group of confidants that help hold you accountable to that and provide you with a listening opportunity, a sounding board, share some of their experiences with you, and being able to help move forward. And just, you hear all the time that business and ownership and, it's lonely. Well, this is a way for you to actually have a group of people that can listen to you. They can share some of those experiences with you and kind of help ease some of the burden and the pain that goes along with it.
We try to add full disclosure. I host those for the central Minnesota area. I am the facilitator, and we try and make them, I try and bring in some humor also, because if we're not laughing with it and with you or finding the humor in some of that, it can be, you'll cry, and you don't need to cry all the time. Like, there's answers, there's solutions to most things. There's solutions to all things. You just might not like the solution, but it's good to laugh about that. Sandy, do you guys also have an annual conference type thing? I want to make sure we mention that. And then.
Yes. And so our upcoming 4th annual SOAR conference, I can't believe that it's happening this fast. Our 4th annual SOAR conference is going to be a little bit different this year. We are doing it in a hybrid format, a totally different hybrid format. On October 11th, we will have our keynote speaker and panelists that will present in the morning, virtual only. Mm-hmm. And you can sign up and register for that. But then the following 2 days, on Wednesday, October 12th, we are going to have an in-person networking event that will be for the Central region, and that will be held at Northern Lights Events and Conference Center, which is on Highway 169 between Princeton and Malacca. From 4 to 7, we'll also have another keynote speaker that's there, but it's an opportunity for some hors d'oeuvres, some snacks, a chance to actually get together and physically be able to have some conversation, which I think some of us are really missing over the last couple of years. And so we will have one that will be hosted in the Central region. And on Thursday, October 13th, there will be one in the Duluth area, which will be for the North region. And that will be at the Garden, which was part of Grandma's in Duluth. And so these networking events, as I say, we're doing a twist on hybrid, doing the virtual only and then doing the in-person only.
I think that's a perfect example of what I think Michelle's going to ask about, where, go ahead, Michelle. Go with the next question.
Well, that's actually a really good lead in, Sandy, because you're talking about something that we're seeing as a trend in business right now is, as people kind of, people have shifted in almost inherently, like almost integrally, and business has changed, and people are still catching up to how it's changed. And so what are some trends that you are seeing specifically in business ownership among women? Because JoyGenea and I are experiencing some interesting things out there in the world, and we're wondering if that's kind of in line with some of the trends you're seeing.
Well, I guess depending on what kinds of trends you're thinking about, for me, the one that I had identified is that there is an awful lot of startups, an awful lot of women or other businesses that potentially had what they might be calling their side hustle that they were doing previously. And now are transitioning and trying to turn it into their full-time position. Either they lost their job during the pandemic, they were laid off, They've decided they don't want to do that anymore. They want to do something more frequently. And so there is much more kind of business startups going on than what I think we've seen in the past. As far as how we're navigating all of that, again, this is from switching from virtual meetings to in-person meetings. And here's the part that I find kind of unusual. For 2 years, 2+ years, most people wanted to get back to normal. They wanted to have in-person. They wanted to go back to being able to do face-to-face. What's happening now, though, is that people got real used to doing back-to-back-to-back meetings, and you'd have your day scheduled from 8 o'clock in the morning, hang up, you were on to the next meeting, on to the next, boom, boom, boom. The end of the
Can't
day.
do that in person. There's travel time. Yeah.
There's travel. There's in between times. You can't fit as much into it. And it's really hard to try and plan traffic. Who ever thought about having to plan traffic for, the last
something that, and again, I don't want to digress too far, but something that somebody mentioned at the beginning of the pandemic was, I think it was Malcolm Gladwell or Seth Godin, one of the two, one of those kind of big guys. It might have been Malcolm Gladwell. I don't want to misappropriate it, but said that, people are going to realize that they get a lot more out of their day by having meetings virtually. They're going to realize that they're saving 2 hours a day just driving around. They're going to realize the wear and tear on their vehicle. They're going to realize the money they save on clothing, on food, if they, when they work from home. They're going to realize this, and they're not going to want normal again. Normal has shifted. There is no such thing as going back to normal, because normal has fundamentally changed. So I think that's really interesting, because we're seeing the same thing too. We're seeing a lot of women who were displaced during the pandemic who are starting businesses or formalizing a side hustle into something, seeing what they can do in terms of business plans, looking for financing. It's really, really interesting. We're seeing some of the same things too.
Absolutely. And, even for some of our classes, or as JoyGenea can attest, for our SOAR success circles, we have a diverse group of women that are from geographically all over. And they are able to actually participate in this, because you don't have to add an hour and a half of travel time, morning and afternoon. They can hop on, they can do their session. It doesn't take their entire day to do this. We want to have the opportunity, of course, for people to have that one-on-one, face-to-face interaction, so that you do feel a little more comfortable with people when you're meeting with them virtually. That's the whole purpose of trying to do this with our SOAR conference in October, is you can do the virtual, you have something in common you can talk about, and then you can get together and have that face-to-face interaction as well.
I like this, and it kind of moves me into the next question. Thank you, Sandy. That's a lot of what I'm seeing too. And Michelle, back that it goes into what is your vision, Sandy, for the future of the Women's Business Alliance in Central Minnesota? Because you're part of craft, you know what I mean? In your role, you're part of crafting the direction that it goes, and best supporting the women in Central Minnesota, which is a little different than other demographics. So I'm a little curious, what is your kind of vision of the future for the Women's Business Alliance and business owners in Central Minnesota?
Well, I guess my vision is, of course, that everyone who wants to start their business can launch it successfully. But the successful launch probably means that you have to do some failures on paper And I'd much prefer that you fail on paper than once you have signed on the dotted line and put everything at risk. So that planning, that preparing, whether that's tapping into resources like the Women's Business Alliance, whether that's using resources like the Small Business Development Centers, some of your county, city planning, all of those. And so many times I hear all the time, oh, if I'd have only known, or you're the best kept secret. And it's not just the Women's Business Alliance, it's SBA, the SBDC. There are so many resources out here that really want to help you get your plan together, work it through, work the numbers, look at it, know what you're getting into, understand marketing, understand the finance, understand HR, so that you can launch successfully and grow. And one of the things that I really would be remiss if I didn't mention is the fact that we are fortunate. My host organization is the Entrepreneur Fund. The Entrepreneur Fund has been in business for 30 years. It's a nonprofit with a mission. It was created by a woman called Mary Matthews. And Mary Matthews was on the Iron Range during the years when all of the mining industry kind of crashed, boomed. JoyGenea, you're a ranger,
Yep. I was there. I was there. I watched it. I saw people's parents losing jobs and having to move away, and being on assistance. And yeah, I saw it in the school and everywhere else.
And so, and on the range, it really was kind of, you grew up, you went to high school, and you picked what mine you were going to go work at, and that was kind of what your life was all about. And once the mine, that whole industry went down, Mary's vision was to create more entrepreneurs. And so she went out and raised money to do some of the gap lending, the startup funds for entrepreneurs, again, with the training and education that went along with it. But one of the things that is unique to the Entrepreneur Fund, and especially for women businesses, that they actually will do funding for service and retail and industries that are typically women owned. Many of the other economic development programs, so to speak, are really focusing on manufacturing companies, heavy industry, tool.
Well, let's just be honest, more male-dominated fields. Let's just call it what it is. Like, women are expanding in those areas, but they have been heavily male-dominated fields.
Well, and if you look nationally at statistics, venture capital is available to men so disproportionately than to women. Yeah. And women-owned businesses tend to, small businesses tend, statistically speaking,
right,
tend to stay on the smaller side, owner-operated, don't necessarily grow past. But it's awesome that the Entrepreneur Fund is there to help all businesses. It's such a great organization, and the Women's Business Alliance is a fantastic kind of chunk of that, or piece of that.
Well, not to keep tooting the horn, but I was just so surprised. I had the opportunity to gain a contract with them during the pandemic to do some coaching. And so I got to work within the Entrepreneurial Fund and with Sandy and with the Women's Business Alliance. And to see the inner workings of that organization, I have to say it's one of the best organizations I'd ever seen internally, how they work, their goal, those types of things. And the other thing I thought that was just fascinating, when you look at the statistics, businesses that go through the Entrepreneurial Fund and stick with that system and have the coaching and the support and those kind of things have a 95% success rate. It is literally a flip of truly the market, which says that most businesses that start have a 95% failure rate. Like it's right. Same numbers. They literally just flip. That's what
almost like helping somebody do something and teaching them how to do it has an impact on their success in doing that thing.
Right?
Like, and those of us who muddled our way through alone feeling like, well, wait a minute, why didn't I know that?
Exactly. It's that best kept secret thing. So that's part of why we're having this podcast. It is not a
Absolutely.
secret. It's not for special people. It's for the people that raise their hand. That's what
Yeah.
I figured out. It's those people that are smart enough to raise their hand early on and say, I don't know exactly how to do this. I have a plan. I'm pretty sure I know how to get from A to B. But you know what? I want to ask a few more people. Like I want to make sure maybe there's a better way to do this now. Maybe things have changed. Like
So speaking of things that we wish we had known a lot sooner.
Yes, smarty pants.
Sandy, what's one thing you wish you had known a lot sooner?
Oh my goodness. Everything.
I know, right? Don't we all wish we had known everything sooner?
But well, I do have to tell you that, one of the things that I guess is somewhat unique about the Entrepreneur Fund is that all of the staff that work at the Entrepreneur Fund at one point in time were business owners. We've all brought our own business experience to the table, whether successful or not. And once upon a time in my previous lives, my ex-husband and I had a restaurant. We bought a restaurant that had been closed for 8 years and put a lot of elbow grease in it, etc. Cleaned it, etc. Cooked. I was the chief cook and bottle washer. Famous for my pies and cinnamon and caramel rolls. But I'm happy to say that it is still operating today. We were able to successfully sell it when when I got pregnant with my son. It was either a choice that he was going to have to sit on the floor in the restaurant and I'd throw French fries at him, or we were going to sell, and kind of went off on our different career paths after that. But what great experience and learning. Again, had I known then what I know now, things could have been much different. It was a great experience that I would never change. But I wish I would have known a little more before I launched.
Yeah.
Awesome.
I think back to even the start of Bad Cat, and there's a lot I wish I had known earlier. It's hard to pick out this one thing.
Yeah. But again, one of the,
because I haven't had any yet today and I'm yawning.
One of the things that I really do want to mention though before we go is that, prior to the pandemic, one of the things that I worked very hard at doing was to try and get out and meet people and talk to people and do presentations. That was all kind of put on hold during the pandemic. I'm going to try and do that again. Whether it's groups or other meetings or things that I can go and talk with, so that it isn't the best kept secret. It's sometimes you have to hear from a friend of a friend of a friend that they got help through this organization or that. So I just want you to know that I'm ready to get on the road, and I'm figuring out how to put travel time back in my schedule.
That's great.
I would love to present and to talk and to share how to access us. Again, for anyone who wants to get a hold of me for assistance or support from the Entrepreneur Fund, you can just go to www.entrepreneurfund.org, and I can spell that for you if you'd like.
Well, and we'll have a link to it on YouTube and on our page, on our website. So yeah. Perfect. Thank you, Sandy, for helping us promote our website and our social media feeds and stuff. So if you want to reach out to Sandy, the easiest way to do that is to check out our page or to go to their website, entrepreneurfund.org.
Entrepreneurfund.org. Yes.
Yes. That's
and
perfect.
Sandy, well, thank you so much.
Thank you.
This was lovely today.
It's a pleasure always to talk to both you and JoyGenea, Michelle. Thank you so much. And thank you so much for all of your assistance and support as we were all trying to figure out how to handle the pandemic and the work and everything, the support you've done for helping us put together videos. It's wonderful. And JoyGenea, you're the best.
Oh, well, thank you. I didn't pay
For
for that.
sure.
Thank you.
For sure. Well, thank you so much, Sandy. Go ahead, JoyGenea.
Oh, I was just going to say, it's been great hanging out with you. Thank you so much. And we hope you've learned a few things today. You've gained some insight and wisdom as you've listened to us. And please come back, listen some more, learn more about the people in our community, and remember to seek out those amazing people in your community that are reaching out and helping other businesses grow, or just helping people to have better, more exciting, and happier lives. Thank you so much for joining us, and we'll talk to you next week.
Bye.